Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is an introduction to the Tightrope framework. I am so grateful that you have taken the time for yourself to learn about this tool or technique so that you can find an inner calm and balance to be able to achieve your goals with ease. You are in the right place. If you're looking for a more peaceful way to achieve your goals and dreams, you want to move away from the workaholic, chaotic approach of multitasking and slipping into procrastination and self sabotage. You want to balance life and achieve with ease. Before we begin, I want to make sure that you have got a copy of the workbook because this coaching training video will go through every section of the 20-page workbook that is available to download. So hopefully you accessed this video through the tightropeframework.com and you would have received an email with a link to watch this video and a link to download the workbook. But if you have happened to stumble upon this video in another way and you don't have a copy of the Tightrope Framework workbook, then you can also download it from directly from the link that's there, or if you're having any difficulties with what's been sent to you in the email. So if you go to www.tightropetool.com/downloads/balancinglife.pdf. So it's exactly as it's written there. If you put that into a website, then that should have the workbook ready for you to use. I encourage you to print it out or upload it on a tablet that allows you to write over the top, because there are sections to put down your reflections and answers. And even if you don't write down on every page, there's also a template at the very end that is designed to capture everything on one page for you. So if you haven't got it, pause the video, go and grab it, and then we can continue. So who am I? A little bit about me and why I am here. My accent is from New Zealand. I'm a Kiwi born Dutch girl. My parents are from Holland, and I moved to London when I was 30 years old in order to explore my European heritage and also to work here as a social worker. I'm a qualified social worker with most of my career being in youth justice. I have a doctorate in youth justice, and I am now a senior manager. So I've had a excellent career and progressed in that career. I'm also a mum of a wonderful, beautiful boy who I didn't know I could have. I was told by doctors that I couldn't have children, and yet I have my son. I had been trying to manage unsuccessfully all of these competing demands as a professional, a parent, a partner, and in my personal self-care, which was probably being impacted the most, with quite significant health concerns and adrenal fatigue as a result. And I would often fall into addictive behaviors, either working too much, I am a self-proclaimed workaholic, or falling into binge eating, emotional eating, binge drinking, and I just wasn't really managing with life. I was sleeping too much or not enough, and just not managing my health and well-being. And I tried many different ways. I went to therapy and counselling, which did improve a lot of my personal approach to life. And I tried lots of different exercise regimes and diets and health programs. But it wasn't until I discovered emotional freedom technique that I was able to really heal some of the triggers that was driving my behavior. And I found an inner calm and peace and strength to feel okay in myself. It's an ongoing journey, but it has really been quite incredible how much I feel stronger and calmer within myself. The emotional eating is all but disappeared. I used to find myself in the cupboard with a spoonful of peanut butter and not knowing why on earth I was doing that. It was uncontrollable, and I've managed to stop drinking for over a year, which feels quite miraculous for me. And I have an inner calm and peace around just the different responsibilities and expectations that I have created for myself, but also I used to resent and really struggle with managing. And now it feels a lot calmer and peaceful. And throughout my career, I developed a tool called the Tightrope, and I use this within my work with young people and parents. And then it evolved into a tool for me as a manager with practitioners. And I'm now using that tool and the research from my doctorate that supported it, together with emotional freedom technique. I'm a qualified level 2 emotional freedom technique practitioner, and I'm bringing those together to offer you a framework in which you can also find a way to achieve your goals with ease and balance life with an inner calm and strength. So I hope you enjoy the coaching and the framework and get a lot out of it. Now, let's look at what this coaching training session is going to cover. There's 4 areas. We'll start with the tightrope analogy and what that actually means. Then I'll take you through all 9 areas of the framework. You'll also experience a little bit of emotional freedom technique, so you can tap into your inner strengths and values, and also to help you overcome any resistance that you might have. And then we'll finish with the last page in the workbook, which is a simple 1-page tool that brings everything together and you can use easily and quickly whenever you need. Today's session is just an introduction to the tightrope framework. We'll be going through all 9 sections quite quickly. I'll show you the page number for each of the 9 sections, where you fill in your reflections and answers, and I'll also take you through the tapping exercise at the end. You can choose to do this in 2 ways. You can either pause as we get to each page and reflect and fill it in as we go, or you could watch through the whole video and then go back to the sections that you want to look at in more detail. At the very end, there's a 1-page template that you can use, so you could choose to just listen through the whole video and then fill in the template. It's your choice how you use this. It's something that's designed to be reused on a regular basis. It's through that ongoing reflection and revisiting of the framework that you will get the most benefit. So let's start with the tightrope analogy. The tightrope analogy is thinking about how times of change or competing demands can feel like living life on a tightrope. And so this change could be a new job or a new relationship or the ending of a relationship or moving house. So big milestone events. But it can also be when we introduce change by setting new goals, and that can create a tightrope effect. And so that's what we're looking at now, is when we have a goal in mind and we're trying to change our behavior or change our lifestyle in order to achieve that goal, we are creating a tightrope effect. There are many elements to a change process. It's not just about setting a goal and taking action. And that's what we're going to be looking at with the tightrope framework. The first area we're going to look at is goal identification. This is on the bottom right of the framework. It's that little figure with the star held up high as their north star of dreams and ambitions. And you could think about goals in regard to your professional life, maybe within your relationships and partnerships, or as a parent, or your personal life. I would like you to focus on just one for today's session. So if you go to page 6 in the workbook, there will be a question there, which is, what is my primary goal right now? And I've included some prompts because often we will set goals in regard to our health, wealth, or relationships. And so I've put some ideas there. And right in the middle, I've noted balance, which may be the goal that you want to have. But it's helpful to be more specific in what you want to achieve, when you want to achieve it by, what would it look like, and what would it mean to achieve this. So you can either pause the video now and reflect on these questions and write them down in the space, or just have in mind now, what goal do you want to focus on for the rest of this session? The next area we're going to look at is to explore our past positive experiences. So this is represented by a figure down at the bottom of the framework, and they are laying some foundations, or maybe they're growing some seeds that are flowering into positive experiences that we can hold on to. It's really important to identify our past positive experiences, because these may be times where you've made progress towards this goal before, and it's helpful to identify those times so you can revisit what's worked before. And it could be that these are experiences that support you now, something that has maybe stuck with you as a really positive, inspirational moment in your life. Or it could be things that have evolved over time, practices or people that have supported you and have started to lay down a really good, strong, stable foundation. So if you go to the next page in the workbook, which is page number 7, you'll see there the question, when have I had success towards this goal before? So think about any steps that you've taken that have worked or provided you with some positive progress towards your goal. If you haven't tried anything before, if you can't think of anything, I've provided prompts that are quite broad ranging. These are from research in regard to the things that support resilience and inner strength and positive decision making. So maybe you could identify the things from your past that provide you with a strong foundation or with some hope. That could be experiences with your family or friends, times where you felt proud of yourself, where you've received praise from others, or maybe it's things that you have had to overcome and find solutions for, or that you've learned from and been able to grow from. However small, note them all down. Every little seed, every little brick provides opportunity for growth and building a foundation. The next section is also looking at our past, but it's about appreciating our past negative experiences. And this is represented by the little figure on the far left who is walking in some mud, and he's sort of a bit worried or stressed out. So this is representing the wobbly foundation, the experiences from our past that can make the foundation muddy and unstable. But these can also help explain some of our self-sabotage triggers. So we'll be looking at those in the next sections. But it's important to appreciate how past negative experiences can create this wobbly foundation and can help explain why it might be difficult to move through this time of change and to keep balance and not fall into self-sabotage behavior. So if you have got a lot of past negative experiences, then I would ask you to enter into this section of the framework with grace and to just gently explore these as an opportunity for empathy towards yourself and all the things that you have had to overcome. So if you go to the next page in the workbook, which is page 8, you'll see a question there. What has happened in my past that makes achieving this goal difficult? I'd ask you to look at this gently and with grace for yourself. And it's really just to acknowledge that these things can make life more difficult. I've provided prompts which have come from research and shown that time and again when these are present, and especially when a lot of them are present, this can lead to harm, violence, substance misuse, and mental health conditions of depression and anxiety. That doesn't mean, like I said before, it doesn't mean that these automatically lead to those things, but it is important to acknowledge if you have had these experiences in your past, that this would make the foundation more wobbly, and it's therefore so much more important to focus on the positive experiences and your inner strength and your safety net. You don't need to get into specifics. You could just write down a word or a date or the time when dot dot dot. If this is very difficult for you, then you don't need to fill it in. You can just acknowledge that it's there and it is part of a change process. Overcoming these difficulties and acknowledging these difficulties and finding ways in which to heal from them is an important part of a change process and achieving your future goals. So, the next section of the framework is to notice current pressures and any limiting beliefs that might be making the tightrope higher and therefore more volatile or more wobbly. So, this is represented by the little figure that's climbing up the ladder, and they've got a bag on their back, which is representing sort of the baggage from the past that we might still be carrying around. Maybe we can't let go of the past, and so that makes the tightrope a bit higher. Or it could be feelings of overwhelm or stress or doubt and uncertainty. So these are things that are currently happening in your life, and these are also things that can change. So, whilst we can't change what's happened in the past, we can change how we think about the past or how we respond to current pressures in our life. And so, if we're able to address some of these, either the actual pressures or how we view them, we can bring the tightrope lower. So, this is a changeable part of the framework and is one that could present complicating factors to being able to achieve your goal. But it's really important to identify any pressures or beliefs that you currently hold that might actually be making things more wobbly or volatile. So if you go to the next page in the workbook, which is page 9, you'll see a question there. What current pressures or beliefs are making life difficult? And I'd like you to first think about this in relation to your goal. Do you have any concerns or worries about how you're going to achieve this goal? Whether that's around the actions that you're going to need to take and whether you will succeed in keeping to them on a consistent basis, or whether that's around any barriers or time constraints or financial pressures or maybe energy levels that mean that you are already worried about how you're going to achieve this goal, however much you dream of it. And then the other question I'd like you to think about, and this is a really important one, do you have any fears or worries around what it would mean to achieve your goal? What would life look like? Are there any concerns around maybe the way people will treat you differently or the amount of change you would have to carry out in order to maintain your goal? Maybe there is an excitement of your dream and what that would look like, but you also know that it will be really difficult. So note those down because that could be part of why it's been difficult to either take the action or consistently take the action to achieve your goal. And then also note down any other pressures or barriers that may be making life difficult right now or your mindset at the moment. These are things that can be addressed and can be changed. So even if it feels like it's impossible with all of these current pressures and barriers, know that these are things that are changeable and you can work on them, including your beliefs about the situation. So the next section of the tightrope framework is looking at what it means to fall off the tightrope, because it is natural to fall before moving on in achieving our goals. In any change process, there are going to be bumps and pushbacks and tripping points, and we need to acknowledge what that looks like for us, when things get too much. So this is represented by literally a little guy that's falling off the back of the tightrope. And you may notice that we have been looking at all the negative things in a row, and that's because they almost work together in regard to how we need to think about what triggers us, and they are all on the left-hand side of the tightrope. And so when it comes to falling off or tripping in our change process, in our journey, this is often described as the fight, flight, freeze response, particularly when we are triggered by our past trauma or adverse experiences, or we have maybe developed coping mechanisms in order to escape the pressures or push back on things that we don't like, or to just avoid them and run away from them. And so these can be extreme behaviours of violence and self-harm and really going in on in ourselves. But it can also look like just avoiding simple tasks, procrastinating, not making that phone call, not sending that email, maybe not connecting with that person that you promised to connect with in order to make something happen towards your goal, or not going to the gym if your goal is to get fit. So avoiding things is it's the escape or the running away, the flight of the fight, flight, freeze. It could be that you find yourself getting into arguments, or getting into arguments with yourself and having a lot of sense of resentment or frustration at yourself. And that's the fight part of our response to all of the pressures that we're experiencing. Or it could be overindulgence. So this is an element of escape and also of the freeze, where we just can't deal with anything anymore. And so we start overindulging in food or alcohol or movies. And that's just a way in which to avoid any of the realities of life in which we are trying to overcome to achieve our goals. So we're going to look at what these mean for you. So if you turn to the next page in the workbook, which is page 10, you will see the question, what does falling off or steps back look like for you? And these can be early warning signs of avoiding, procrastinating, or feeling irritable, or maybe sleeping in and hiding under the duvet covers to escape reality. Or it could be full blown quitting and feeling like you've failed in your goal. Maybe you've avoided whatever it is that you were meant to be doing for months. Note them down without any guilt or judgment or criticism wherever possible, because this is so important to start to identify some patterns in what your go-to coping behaviors are, and try to see them as coping behaviors in which you are maybe avoiding the reality of the actions that need to be taken to achieve your goal. Or maybe you've had a trigger or an incident, or something has happened, and it's okay to acknowledge that that has just tipped you into a place of needing to hide or escape or just seek some comfort. And then you can look to get back onto the tightrope and go towards your goals. So we're now going to move into some more positive areas of the change process, and that is tapping into your inner strengths, identifying what supports you to balance, and that's represented by the little figure balancing on the tightrope. So if you turn to the next page in the workbook, which is page 11, and there is the question, what strengths do I have to balance? And if you were to think of a tightrope walker, they often have this big long pole to help them balance. So if you were to see your qualities and skills and attributes as being the elements of that pole, and the more you have, then the more easier it is to balance and move forward through this change process. And I've provided prompts that are shown up time and again in research as the qualities and inner strengths that support resilience and positive decision making, and will help you in being able to achieve your goals. So take the time to review these and identify your strengths. It's a really important part of this change process. And even if you aren't demonstrating these qualities now, but you have in the past, then it's important to recognize that as well. So, the next section of the Tightrope framework is the safety net. So, these are the people, places, and practices that you can turn to provide you with some safety and bounce back up onto the tightrope if you were to fall into any of your self sabotaging behaviors. So, that's represented by the figures down at the bottom there, catching the person who is falling. If you go to the next page on the workbook, which is page 12, you'll see the question, who or what is my safety net? And I have provided some prompts which have come up in research as being the factors that support resilience and change. And these could be people that you can turn to for a listening ear or a good cry. It could be a place that you can go to for some solace or to connect with other people, or it could be a practice. So, in here is also some positive activities or sleep and nutrition, things that will provide you with that resilience and the ability to bounce back. So take the time to explore these, and also be sure to identify anything that you know helps you to stay motivated, stay on track, and gives you that sort of cheerleader feel. Okay, we're now on to the 8th part of the framework. So there's this one and one more to go. And this is a really crucial element of a change process, and that's about taking a value led approach. It's represented by the person standing on the top right of the tightrope framework. They're on a stable platform and they are holding their hand to their heart. And it's so important to check in with your values before thinking about what actions you're going to take, which is the next and final part of the framework. We need to think about whether your values and goal are clashing. So let's think about, maybe you've got a goal that requires routine and restriction. But what you really value is fun and creativity. And therefore, if you are trying to achieve a goal that has actions that are needing some routine and restriction, but you are being drawn back into fun and creativity and spontaneity, you are going to fall back more. You're going to find it really difficult to move towards your goal. And likewise, if it was the other way around, if your goal requires you to be really outgoing and creative, and maybe putting yourself out to the public, or really getting out of your comfort zone, but what you feel safe with or what you value is being hidden or within a routine and a structure that is safe, then it will be hard to move towards your goal. So, identifying what you value is an important part of the framework. I know it's taken us all the way around the framework to get here, but the reason that it's in this point is because this is what could either draw you back onto the tightrope, forever being on that, having to balance and deal with that change process. But it can also help you drive to the next step, which is taking the steps down. So we're going to explore these. Okay, so turn to page 13, the next page in the workbook, and there you will see the question, what do I most value? So try to identify your top 3 values over all others. I've provided you with some prompts here. These come from Social Capital Research and the Good Lives model, which recognizes that even in harmful or negative behavior, there are goods that are trying to be achieved. There is a value base to that. There's something that we want to get out of it. So whether we are taking action towards a positive goal or we are falling back into self-sabotaging behavior, there is something that we are trying to meet. There is a need we're trying to meet in that. So you can use the ones that are here, or you can come up with your own. If you know what you value over anything else, whether that is loyalty with your family or with your friends, or it's having knowledge and knowing exactly what's going on so you can then make an informed decision, or if it's about creativity and fun, whatever you know you most value, write these down. You could put all of them down and then number them. Okay, so I invite you to take a deep breath before we continue to the final part of the framework, which is about taking the next steps towards your goal. And that's because I want to do a small exercise with you to help you think about what will support you in your steps forward and how you could tap into a value-led approach to taking action. So, to support this process, I invite you to think of your 8-year-old self. And the reason we're going to that age is because developmentally, it's a time when we know the importance of being loved and wanted, which is our first base developmental need as a baby, and of having somewhere safe and of being heard and understood. And we know what we like and don't like. And it's also a time when we are really starting to see ourselves in the wider world in regard to society and the roles that are played in society. So, up until this point, there has been a real internal look into the self within the family and the relationships within the family. But at this time, between the ages of sort of 6 to 9, there is more connection with the community, with friends, and with school. Not to the extent of an adolescent who is fully connected with their friends and being swept away by their friends, but it's a time and an age where you start to think about what you want to do in the world and who you want to be when you grow up, and starting to understand some of the dynamics of adults, and also starting to think about your role in those dynamics, which is I suppose more awareness than when we were toddlers and very much just um, selfish and thinking about ourselves and needing to have our needs met. So that's why I'm inviting you to think of this age. So I invite you to start to see your 8-year-old self. And if this is a time in your life that was particularly difficult, then I ask you to freeze or fog out anyone else that may be coming up at that time and age. We're just looking to your inner child, your 8-year-old's eyes, to meet them where they're at that time. And we can do a little bit of emotional freedom technique here. This is an inner child piece of work that I've been trained in. It's a light introduction to it, but I'm mindful that we all have different experiences as we grow up, and so this may not have been a positive time for you. But just focus in on your 8-year-old's eyes and heart to find what it is that they need. And we can do a little bit of tapping, and I'm not going to take you through all the tapping points, which are all the bony parts of the face that are connected to the meridian points. I'm just going to invite you to tap on the cushion part of the side of your hand. You could close your eyes at this point to help you visualize your 8-year-old self, but if that's not feeling safe, you can either skip this exercise or keep your eyes open. And at any time, you can open your eyes and just look around the room. So, Imagine your 8-year-old self, and we're just going to tap on the side of the hand while we're doing this, and see them, see where they are, make sure they're in a safe place, and make sure that anyone else around them is just frozen or fogged out. Just want you to really try and look into the eyes of your 8-year-old self and start to understand what they know. What do they cherish? What have they already learnt about the world? And whether that's a safe learning or a surviving learning, what do they hold within them to manage in life and get to where you are now? And really see the inner strengths that they carry. And take a deep breath. So I now invite you to ask your 8-year-old self, while you're looking into their eyes, what do you need right now? And whatever is the first thing that comes up, just take a note of that. And it may be that they need a hug, or they need some answers, or they need some motivation, or they need a cheerleader, or they need to be heard and just have someone listen to them. Whatever it is that they have said that they need right now, imagine that they receive this. And that can be imagined in different ways. You could imagine a ball of light from your heart providing them with whatever it is that they need. Just imagine creating that and passing it to their heart. If you don't feel able to do that, you could imagine it coming from the universe as a ball of light or as a showering of love, or you could imagine it growing up from Mother Earth and wrapping around them. Whatever it is that they need right now, I want you to visualize a way in which you can give that. And it could be that you give it yourself, if it's a hug or sitting next to them and listening to them or explaining something to them. And then I also invite you to imagine receiving it yourself, whether that is through the passing of that ball of light from their heart to your heart, or allowing the universe to pass this on to you, or Mother Earth bringing it up and wrapping around you. Allow yourself to feel what it would be like to receive what it is that you need right now. And take a deep breath. So, having completed that visualization exercise, I hope you've been able to identify something that your inner child needs right now. And I invite you to note that down on page 13 with your values as an identified need. And this might be a need that is not being met at the moment, which is what is sort of pulling you back into falling off behavior. Or it could be the need that's really driving the goal that you're trying to achieve and that you dream of achieving. But just take a note of that, because that inner child work of tapping into what we needed as children and recognizing it maybe as an unmet need is a wonderful way for us to find pathways in which to meet that need in healthy and positive ways, and maybe bring it in line with some of the actions that we can take to achieve our goals. So we're going to look at those next steps now. Now we're at the final part of the Tightrope framework, which is what one step can you take now? And these are the steps that we can take towards our goal. It's represented by the person walking down the tightrope on the right-hand side. So if you go to the next page in the workbook, which is page 14, you will see the question, what one step can I take right now towards my goal? I have provided a number of prompts which are drawn from research as evidence-based actions that support positive change and positive outcomes. Some of them are quite broad, and some of them may actually be the goal that you have already. And so, what might be helpful is for you to think about the smaller steps that you could take in order to achieve that bigger goal. And it's really important to focus on the first next step that you want to take. And the reason we did that visualization is that maybe your first next step is to start meeting that need that was identified in the exercise with your inner child. So the next page in the workbook has a discussion around the tightrope framework in action and has a image of the person on the tightrope with the numbers 0 to 10 underneath. And this is to encourage you to think about how motivated you are to take the steps that you've just identified. So review the steps that you've just written down and then think about if 0 is your way back, sort of on the edge of probably avoiding or stepping off and just wanting to escape, falling off the tightrope. And 10 is that you feel that you are in a very value-based and ready to take action place. This can be just a helpful stop point in whether you're actually able to take those steps and actions. And maybe you need to break them down into much smaller steps, more achievable steps that are more motivating, and that you're like, yes, I'm a 10 out of 10. I am doing it right now, and I can see myself taking that action on a consistent basis, knowing that there will always be the wobbles and the triggers and the trip points. But this can be a helpful reflection in where you're at in your motivation to take the steps that you've just identified. So that is all 9 areas of the tightrope framework. Well done. High five. You have identified your goals, identified the past experiences that support positive change but also could make everything more wobbly. You have acknowledged the pressures or limiting beliefs that might make that tightrope higher and therefore mean that you are more likely to fall into self-sabotaging behaviors. You're able to name what those are. You have also identified your internal positive qualities and strengths that will help you stay balanced, and the safety net that will help you bounce back and carry on towards your goals. You've identified the things that you value and need so you can prioritize those within the actions that you're going to take towards your goals. So I hope you found that to be a strength-based, trauma-informed, appreciative and empathetic way in which to really think about those goals that you want to achieve, and particularly the ones that you're struggling to take action with, so you can see how there are so many different elements to a change process, and it helps to acknowledge all of those, both the strengths that you can draw on, but also be appreciative of what might be tipping you into self-sabotage, and seeing that as a process. And I hope you feel motivated with the steps that you have identified to take towards your goal. However, if you are feeling overwhelmed by everything that we have just looked at, or at the enormity of the challenges that you're needing to overcome in order to achieve your goals, or if you're feeling skeptical about how this framework could help you, I have included in the workbook a tapping script, an emotional freedom technique tapping script that you can tap along to. Tapping is a form of acupuncture, but it's used by tapping on the different parts around your face. And I've included a map of where the tapping points are. So if you're not familiar with them, do look at that in the workbook. But I'll also demonstrate next where to tap. And it's literally going around the bony parts, as well as on the collarbone and under the arm and the top of the head. So if you give it a go and see if it just helps to reduce some of that overwhelm and doubt in order for you to focus on achieving what you want to achieve with ease. So you'll find the tapping script on page 18. The previous page, page 17, has got the image with the numbers of where to tap. You don't have to tap in this order, but it's just natural to go from the eyebrow and down and then around. So we start with the side of the hand as a setup, which is to try and help the brain overcome any doubt and skepticism. And then we for the remaining three verses we will just do the face under here and on the top of the head. So that's what those little acronyms are. So above the eyebrow, side of the eye, under the nose, on the chin, collarbone, under the arm, and top of the head. But you can follow along with me, and because you should have this printed out, hopefully you can see both the image of me with the numbers on my face, or just tap where it feels a bit bony. So I'm going to now read out loud the script that you have in the workbook. I'll be looking at the other screen. I'll pause after each line so you can repeat it after me whilst you're tapping along. It helps to say it out loud. It seems to resonate more in the body, but if you're not in a place where you can do that, then repeating it silently in your head is great too. If there's any words or statements that don't really ring true for you, you can amend these. You can write your own script and tap along to it as well. We start with the setup on the side of the hand, which is to help the brain get into mode. And then often we'll acknowledge the problem and then we'll move on to some positive affirmations. So if you follow that same sort of pattern when writing your own script, that would be the most impactful. So I'm going to read out loud, pause, and let you repeat it after me, and we'll go through all four verses. So starting with the side of the hand. Even though I am skeptical about how this will help, I am open to trying something new. Even though I am overwhelmed at how much I need to do in order to achieve my goal, I am open to enjoying the journey. Even though I keep falling back from my goal, I am willing to try again and with more ease. Okay, take a deep breath. And then we're going to go around the face. No wonder I'm not achieving my goal. I keep being swept away by all these pressures. My limiting beliefs get in the way of my success. It can feel so hopeless. Why do I even bother to try? All I've done is write down a lot of statements. How will this framework and tapping even help? Yet I am here and willing to give it a go. Take a deep breath. To the next verse. Something keeps pulling me back from my goals. Change can feel like being on a tightrope. And falling off is a natural part of growth and resilience. I can appreciate how my past experiences impact me. I can identify how my thoughts change my behavior. I have taken the time to acknowledge my triggers. I can name my strengths and values. Now is the time to find balance and ease. And take a deep breath. And the last verse. What I want is important to me. The journey to achieve my goal is a worthy one. I choose to do this for me now. I am worthy of the time it will take to achieve success. I can learn to love what it takes to get what I want. I have strengths and qualities I can draw on. This is within my gift. I choose to give this to me now. And a final deep breath. Okay, we are on the last page of the workbook, page 20. And this is something that I hope you will really appreciate. It is my gift to you. It is the Tightrope framework on one page. This is something that I would encourage you to print out a few copies of. So you've got a blank template lying around ready when you need to just pause and reflect. And as you get familiar with the order in which to go around, I've got a little circle for the number 1 and then arrows sort of showing the order, and it goes in order of the numbers from 1 to 9. As you get familiar with these different sections and what you need to explore, it shouldn't take more than maybe 10 to 15 minutes to just pause and think, okay, what is the goal I'm focusing on at the moment? And do this for one goal at a time. What's the goal that I'm focusing on at the moment? Where have I been able to achieve successes with those goals? Where have I had past issues that have made it difficult? What's happening right now for me that's a pressure? What's the behavior that I'm clearly tipping into that's stopping me from achieving my goals? What strengths do I have? Who's my safety net? What do I value? What do I need to do now? And just do that little check with the 0 to 10. How motivated am I to do what I've just written down? And maybe revisit a more achievable one. So I use this for myself on a regular basis. I've printed it out on a small A5 size, but you can print it out however big you want. But I can very quickly revisit what I'm focusing on, but also really appreciate what's happening that's making the tightrope higher, and appreciate the strengths that I can draw on. Or maybe I've forgotten about a safety net practice or person that I need to turn to again. So I encourage you to print a few copies out, have it ready, and use this as a framework to support you in achieving balance in life and your goals with ease. So all I have left to say is thank you. Thank you for being to the end of the session, and thank you for taking the time to really reflect on what you want to achieve and how you can achieve it. If you want to know anything more about my story and journey, or to access the other tightropes, so there's a free download available for the adolescent tightrope and for the practitioner tightrope, or to find out more about the course that goes into a lot more detail around the framework, there's videos and tapping scripts for each of the sections of the tightrope framework, or to access personal one-to-one coaching with myself, then all that information is available through my website, robertaevans.com. Otherwise, I hope you find the framework really helpful for you to balance life and achieve your goals with ease. All the best.